9:15 on the morning show with Jeff and Will. We are back, and joining us as she does every Monday around this time, it is all the way from the Rockland County Business Journal, the editor-in-chief herself, Tina Traster. Good morning, Tina. How are you this morning?
Oh, I do love that walk-up. It makes me feel so grand. I am good. How is everybody?
We like to make our guests feel special, and I'm glad it's working. We are doing great this morning. Getting in was pretty rough. The weather outside is, in fact, frightful, and 'tis the season. So, living up to the slogan, but hopefully things are less frightful in the business world of Rockland County.
Oh, they never are.
Well,
anyway, let's start with a little bit of a cloud, which is that the Clarkstown is underway with plans to impose a 4% hotel-motel occupancy tax on hotels and motels, which would probably mean about nearly 600 rooms. Now, let me put this in some context for everybody. So, in Rockland County, there's no other town that has imposed a hotel-motel tax. With the exception of Nyack, and we'll circle back to that in a moment, the village. Right now, when people come to stay in the county, they pay a state tax, they pay a county tax. But the option to also impose, in this case, a 4% hotel tax is just, another tax for people who are coming to stay in Clarkstown. Now, the first step, which is that Clarkstown needed to, there's a legislative requirement for Clarkstown to get both a sponsorship from the Assembly and the state, the Assembly and the Senate. And Kenneth Zabrowski has already sponsored this legislation. I'm not sure about Bill Weber. We didn't see his legislation as of the end of the week. But anyway, call for a 4% tax on hotels and motels. Now, the thing about this is that it does not specify, I wanted to make a different point. The point I wanted to make is that it's right now it will only be Clarkstown. And so that raises the issue as to whether that undermines the competitiveness for hotels operating in Clarkstown versus those in, say, Ramapo or Orangetown that are not going to have this additional 4% burden. And that is an issue that was raised by the manager at the DoubleTree by Hilton in Nanuet because, as he said, basically an additional tax will make us less competitive with adjacent towns. He said hotel rooms are a commodity. People shop for prices. This could be an issue. We also spoke to Mark Dorr, who is the president of the New York State Hospitality and Tourism Association. And he said that, that there are some towns in and around, I think he mentioned Syracuse. There are some towns in Westchester that have been doing this. But the issue is whether or not, in his mind, is whether or not the monies that are raised are going into the general fund to potentially, manage a budget that's coming up short, or whether, if in fact this tax is imposed, does it go back into supporting and boosting tourism? That, I think, the industry folks that I spoke to seem to feel is, reasonable or at least justifiable. If you're going to, add on another 4% tax, well, at least use it to stimulate the economy, to stimulate tourism. But if it's just to plug a budget because a town is anticipating budget shortfalls, as Clarkstown might be, then it's then I don't think that the industry can support that. Just to give you some context, the state has a 8-point-something% tax on hotels and motels, and then in 2012, Rockland County passed a 3% hotel occupancy tax. And so, for example, in 2020, in 2023, just this year in January, the village of Nyack also imposed a 3% room occupancy tax. Now, Nyack essentially has 2 hotels and 1 motel for a total of about 250 rooms, but their plan is to funnel at least half of that back into tourism. Rockland County itself has said that the should go into the general fund, and according to Rockland County's 2024 budget, the county expects to collect $1.4 million in occupancy tax. So it is a tactic that is used, but it has implications. So just to recap, if Clarkstown is the only town in the county of Rockland that has an extra tax, does it undermine the competitiveness of the 6 or so hotels, all main flag, brand name hotels? Does it undermine their competitiveness? I guess this is what remains to be seen. So I think we can expect that this is going to go forward. It seems that this is what the town board wants, and the legislation is already underway. So I think we're going to see a hotel-motel tax, and also just numbers. If you add up the 8-something% and the 3% and now another 4%, you are looking at an additional nearly 16% on top of a hotel room. So that, I suppose, matters when people are looking for rooms and they're looking for competitive rates. So that is one story that we are tracking and we are following. If we don't have any questions on that, I will move on to the next thing that I wanted to bring up.
Sure. What's up next?
All right. What's up next? So a group that's calling itself Rockland for Ceasefire has sent around, you may have gotten this too.
We were supposed to interview a spokesperson from them this morning, but they didn't call in.
Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit more about what we know.
Okay.
It's okay, I don't know exactly who they are, and they put out a press release, and they seem to have 2 demands. Okay, one, and we'll get back to this, is to release the charges of the 15-year-old Palestinian American boy who tore down the Israeli flag from the Clarkstown, from in front of the Clarkstown.
Right, it was on the flagpole, right.
It was on the flagpole.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just sort of a demand for, I think, vigilante justice. And, no matter what the motive potentially was of this young man, he had no right to scale the flagpole and tear down a flag. We live in a society of laws. You don't take the law in your own hands. And so, that ask to drop those charges on the surface does not seem to make sense to me. But I think more importantly and ideologically, something that we need to talk about is the idea of whether or not you can, in fact, hoist a flag from a foreign country, whether or not a government can do that. And the answer is yes. The answer is that a federal, a state, a county, and a local government does have the right a flag of another nation, but here are the caveats. And maybe this is a lesson. I didn't know these things, but now I do. So you can put up a flag, but it has to be flown. It cannot be flown higher than the American flag, and it also has to be flown on a separate flagpole. And but the reason that a government in fact can fly a flag is it's a free speech argument. And very recently, the United States Supreme Court, in a case called Shurtleff versus the City of Boston, found that the flying of a foreign flag is to be a permissible expression of government speech. I'm going to repeat that. It's a permissible expression of government speech. So if a government like the town of Clarkstown wants to hoist an Israeli flag and they do it on their own volition, then that's fine. They are allowed to do that. That does not break any law. However, if governments entertain a request to put up a flag, then they must accommodate any request. So, for example, if Jewish Federation had been the one, and I don't think that was the case, to ask Clarkstown to hoist that Israeli flag, well, then anybody has the right to also hoist the flag of any other country. But again, if a government takes it upon themselves to do this, they are totally within their rights, because the Supreme Court has found that government has a right to speech. Government has a right to a perspective and a speech, and the flying of a flag is an expression of that speech. So I think that's pretty interesting. This announcement, and we'll see if this protest actually manifests tomorrow. But we did get an email, from Rockland County. The county wants to make a point that it has a policy not to fly any flags of any other nation or country. That is, however, simply a policy. It would, no pun intended, it would fly in the face of what our constitutional law actually is around this. So, we're in tense times, and I think it's strange that not strange, but I think the Middle East war has opened up sort of so many issues that are forcing us, as we seem to be in these times, to constantly be learning civic lessons and to be understanding about what's permissible and what isn't. And the reason why we're having this conversation is in the press release that you would have seen too. This group alleged that flying the flag was in violation of a law prohibiting all but U.S. flags on county or town property, and that is just wrong. That's a wrong statement, and they put it in the release. And as I said, I don't know who this group is, Rockland for Ceasefire. It appears that they have not been responding to calls from the press.
Well, they did respond to us, but we scheduled to do a live interview with them this morning at 8:15, but they did not call us as scheduled.
Yeah. We'll try and reschedule with them, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and like you, I hadn't heard of them prior to this either. But again, this was all born out of the war that just started in October.
Absolutely, and I think also of this incident that involves this young man who took it upon himself to pull down a flag and.
Allegedly.
Okay, allegedly. Okay, I think he was found with the flag over on Route 304, but let's go with allegedly.
Well, he hasn't been found guilty of it yet, so yeah, it's allegedly.
We're trying to protect you from a lawsuit, Tina.
Okay, so fine, allegedly, fair enough. But the question, but then he has to go through the justice system.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
It's not enough to be. I don't know what this group's justification is to say that these charges should be dropped. On what basis?
Well, we were hoping to find that out this morning, but unfortunately she didn't call in. Tina, I got to let you go. We've got a show coming up at 9:30. We appreciate your call as always. We'll be off on Monday for the Christmas and the following Monday on New Year's, so we will talk to you on January 8th.
Have a very happy holidays, everybody.
Same to you and